Inside a printing shop, rotating press rollers pull material inward, and any contact in that zone is immediately drawn into the machine's feed path. Inside a dim loading bay, a truck bed tilts and a side gate opens. Loose sand begins to flow outward under gravity. At a construction site, an unsecured brick sits above an active work zone, creating a direct drop hazard. A rolling mill glows with heat, and suddenly a stream of molten metal flows outward in a sweeping arc. In a quiet workshop line, everything appears routine. Then a sudden release sends force outward in seconds. Never stand in line with pressurized systems or unsecured components. Containment and distance are non-negotiable. A large mixer sits idle during cleaning. Then without warning, the system suddenly activates. Never, ever energize equipment while maintenance or cleaning is in progress. Lockout and verification must be absolute. A radial drill spins up in a cluttered workshop. Then suddenly, contact occurs, and the motion escalates instantly. Do not operate rotating equipment with loose positioning or unsecured contact. Any contact point will be rapidly driven by the machine's motion. Inside a workshop, a large tire is being handled. Then, without warning, pressure releases all at once. Avoid standing over or directly beside a pressurized tire during inflation or handling. Stored energy can release instantly and with force. Inside a factory line, a massive stone slab shifts slightly. Then the balance gives way all at once. Never ever manually support stone slabs or remain within the fall zone of suspended or leaning materials. Gravity will take over instantly if stability is lost. At the paper production line, fast-moving rollers keep pulling material inward. Then unexpected contact occurs within the motion. Do not position yourself near exposed in-running rollers. Maintain safe distance and ensure guards are in place before any interaction. At an outdoor work site, a forklift holds a suspended load mid-air, then the danger zone beneath it becomes immediately occupied. Always keep clear of raised loads and ensure lifting equipment is fully lowered before approaching or working nearby. Inside a factory, a sealed pressure pot cooker sits under operation. Then the door suddenly loses containment under pressure. Ensure pressure vessels are fully depressurized and mechanically secured before opening or standing in front of access doors. On a factory floor, a hose line is in use. Then the pipe suddenly releases under pressure. Always isolate and depressurize fluid lines before connections and verify they are secured against sudden release. On a roadside walkway, a line marking machine rolls over a manhole. Then the ground suddenly releases pressure beneath the surface. Ensure underground utilities and confined spaces are assessed and ventilated before operating heat or pressure-based equipment over sealed covers or manholes. Inside a quiet supermarket checkout, everything is routine until the glass front suddenly shatters inward. Never position workstations directly in line with entry points. Install physical barriers and maintain protective standoff zones between storefronts and occupied areas. Inside a backyard construction frame, a ladder is set in place. Then in one instant, the entire setup loses stability. Never rely on unsecured ladders or unstable framing as a working platform. Always anchor ladders, stabilize the base, and maintain 3 points of contact before applying weight. Inside a steel warehouse, a suspended coil hangs quietly on a hook until something shifts and the load becomes unstable. Do not stand or work beneath or beside a suspended load. Always maintain a clear exclusion zone and ensure loads are fully secured before positioning. On a fast-moving production line, sheets glide smoothly under a gantry system until the machine suddenly cycles while the zone is not secured. Never enter or reach into an active automated system without full lockout and verification of zero motion. Machines can cycle without warning. At a busy container yard, a truck rolls into position beneath a towering gantry crane, just as suspended containers show signs of instability. Never position vehicles or personnel under a suspended container unless it is fully stabilized and confirmed secure before lowering. At an outdoor factory station, an industrial mixer, is actively running as material is fed into it. Then the system suddenly increases in motion. Do not introduce materials or tools into an active mixer without complete shutdown, isolation, and proper guarding in place. Inside a heavy industrial line, long steel bars feed into a rotating processing chamber. Then the system suddenly increases its inward motion. Do not interact with moving feed lines or rotating chambers without complete isolation, guarding, and verified shutdown procedures. Feed rollers and rotating chambers create continuous linear motion combined with rotational force. Once material is engaged, friction and torque generate a strong inward draw that cannot be manually resisted. Moving systems convert contact into motion instantly. Shut down, isolate, and maintain distance from active feed zones. On an elevated slab, a worker cuts through concrete at the edge. Then the section suddenly loses support as the cut separates it. Do not cut or weaken a structural slab without verifying support conditions below. Always assess load paths and secure the section before separating it. In a backyard cooking setup, a large metal pot sits over intense heat, then the surface beneath suddenly fails. Do not place high-heat cooking equipment on unstable or heat-sensitive surfaces. Use reinforced, heat-resistant foundations designed for thermal load. Prolonged heating transfers energy downward into the surface, causing expansion, moisture vaporization, and internal stress buildup within the material. As heat accumulates unevenly, trapped gases and weakened structural bonds create pressure zones that can suddenly fail, leading to cracking or explosive rupture. Heat doesn't stop at the surface. It travels and builds silently. Stable foundations and heat control prevent sudden structural failure. At a front entryway, a worker climbs a ladder to handle a large curved panel. Then the entire setup suddenly loses stability. Never handle large or awkward materials from a ladder. Use stable platforms and proper support to control the load at all times. At height, on a narrow scaffold, an AC unit is being positioned. Then the ladder shifts and the setup suddenly loses stability. Do not carry heavy equipment while climbing or working at height without proper lifting systems and secured access. Use hoists, maintain 3 points of contact, and ensure scaffolding and ladders are fully stabilized and tied off before any load is moved. When a worker carries a heavy object like an air conditioning unit at height, the combined center of gravity shifts upward and away from the body's base of support. This reduces stability and increases the moment arm acting on the structure beneath. As the worker transitions from scaffold to ladder, the load creates uneven force distribution. The ladder, which is designed primarily for vertical loading, experiences lateral and outward forces due to the offset weight. Height multiplies every mistake. If the structure isn't secure, nothing on it is. On a paper production line, a massive rotating drum shifts under load. Then the entire system suddenly moves out of balance and transfers force outward. Ensure rotating drums, support arms, and mounting systems are securely locked, regularly inspected, and isolated before any close interaction or maintenance. On the edge of a high-rise concrete frame, a suspended platform suddenly shifts, and the open space below turns the area into an immediate fall hazard. Never rely on unstable edges or unsecured platforms. Always use certified fall protection systems and secure anchorage points. At height, even a small shift in footing or platform stability moves the center of mass beyond the support base, causing instant loss of balance. Without guardrails or anchorage, gravity drives rapid downward motion, leaving little opportunity for recovery. Height hazards escalate instantly with zero margin for error. Secure footing and proper fall protection are the only real controls. A printing machine runs at full speed, rollers turning inward, and contact occurs at the feed point in a split second. Never, ever approach or interact with in-running rollers while the machine is active. Maintain guarding, safe distance, and full isolation before any access. Inside a workshop, a car rolls forward, heading straight toward an open service pit with no barrier in place. Never leave service pits. Unguarded, always use physical barriers and wheel stops to block vehicle access. A moving vehicle carries forward momentum proportional to its mass and speed. With no stopping barrier, that momentum continues toward the pit opening. Once the front wheels lose support, gravity shifts the vehicle's center of mass forward, and the vehicle loses stability at the edge. Open pits are invisible hazards to moving vehicles. Block the path before motion reaches the edge. Inside, a loaded truck of foam rolls one step, one spark, and the entire space ignites rapidly. Never ignore static electricity in enclosed or flammable environments. Always ground, discharge, and control ignition sources. On a factory floor, a massive industrial washer suddenly surges, and the load inside turns into a powerful force in seconds. Never stand in the plane of rotation or discharge of high-speed machinery. Always assume stored energy can release without warning. Industrial laundry machines spin at high RPM, storing significant rotational energy in both the drum and the load. If the load becomes unbalanced or shifts, that energy converts into strong outward motion along the path of rotation. Rotating systems release energy instantly when balance is lost. Stay out of the line of motion and keep control zones clear. On a cluttered factory floor, a massive rotating drum hums quietly until a small contact triggers a much more powerful response. Never use your body to test, adjust, or interact with moving machinery. Always assume any contact point can activate a hazardous motion zone instantly. On a factory platform, a glowing hot load sits under a hydraulic press. Then upon pressure, it suddenly shifts out of position. Do not stand in the path of unsecured loads. Always ensure hot or heavy materials are fully stabilized before working nearby. When a load is not properly secured, gravity and surface friction determine its stability. Heat can reduce friction and alter material rigidity, making the load more prone to slipping. Once it shifts, its mass converts into uncontrolled motion, carrying momentum across the nearest path. Unsecured loads don't stay still, they move when conditions change. Stay clear of the path and keep control zones defined. Inside a warehouse aisle, a pallet stack is lifted. Then the load loses balance and shifts sideways. Never raise or move a load that isn't stable. Always ensure pallets are centered, balanced, and secured before lifting. At a crowded terminal walkway, a large glass panel is being moved. Then it suddenly tips off balance into the open space. Do not move large panels or unstable loads through crowded areas without proper control, secure positioning, and a clear path. Tall, flat objects like panels or frames have a naturally high center of gravity and a narrow base of support, which makes them inherently unstable. When the object begins to tilt even slightly, its center of mass shifts outside its base, allowing gravity to take over. As it rotates, the force increases rapidly due to leverage, meaning even multiple people cannot counteract the momentum once it passes the tipping point. Additionally, smooth flooring reduces friction, making it easier for the base to slide while the top accelerates, worsening the loss of control. Unstable loads don't give second chances. Control the load before movement begins. At a roadside stall, a machine runs with exposed rotation. Then the motion suddenly creates a powerful pull zone within its reach. Keep a safe distance from exposed rotating parts and avoid reaching into active machinery without isolation and proper guarding. Inside a narrow workshop aisle, a worker steps in front of a machine. Then the machine's motion suddenly takes control. Do not position your body within the operating range of moving mechanical components. Maintain clear separation and ensure proper guarding is in place before approaching. Machines with reciprocating or rotating components generate continuous mechanical force that does not pause once motion begins. When the operating zone is entered, the moving parts continue along their fixed path, transferring momentum through any contact point and rapidly reducing the available space for correction. Machines follow motion, not intention. Stay outside the movement zone or control the hazard first. On a textile floor, a rotating warping drum keeps pulling until one small reach turns the area into a high-risk hazard zone. Keep hands, clothing, and body clear of rotating rollers and tension materials. Isolate and stop the machine before any adjustment or intervention. At a construction site edge, an 80-ton concrete mixer inches backward. Then the ground beneath it suddenly loses support. Always verify ground stability, load limits, and edge protection before maneuvering heavy vehicles near excavations. Unstable soil can collapse without warning. A fully loaded concrete mixer carries extreme mass, and that weight is concentrated through a relatively small contact area at the tires. This creates high ground pressure, especially near excavation edges where soil has already been disturbed. When soil is loose, saturated, or poorly compacted, its load-bearing capacity drops significantly. As the vehicle reverses, shifting forces and slight changes in center of gravity introduce dynamic loading, which can exceed the soil's shear strength in seconds. Heavy loads amplify weak ground. Distance and stability are your only real protection. At a residential pour site, a concrete pump line is feeding fresh mix. Then the hose suddenly jerks under high pressure. Do not stand in line with or over a pressurized concrete hose. Maintain distance and control zones at all times. In a narrow warehouse aisle, a moving forklift drifts forward, while operator control is suddenly lost. Do not operate mobile equipment when fatigued or inattentive. Stay alert, maintain full control, and use automatic stop or deadman systems whenever available. Forklifts are powered industrial vehicles designed to maintain motion once drive input is applied. In many models, even slight pressure on the control lever or pedal keeps the machine moving steadily forward. When operator alertness drops, there is no corrective input, no steering adjustment, no braking, no speed modulation, so the vehicle continues along its path unchecked. Closing lesson fatigue turns machines into uncontrolled force. Alertness is the first line of safety. On a night construction site, a drilling rig stands upright, then suddenly loses balance and moves downward with force. Maintain stable ground conditions, verify load distribution, and control equipment positioning before and during heavy machinery operations. A crane lifts a massive steel structure into position, then suddenly the load loses control mid-air. Always ensure rigging is properly secured, balanced, and verified before and during any lifting operation. A suspended load behaves like a controlled system only when all lifting points share the weight evenly and the center of gravity stays directly beneath the hook. If the structure is uneven, improperly rigged, or shifts during lifting, the center of gravity can move outside the support lines. This creates a rotational torque that the crane cannot counter fast enough. At that moment, gravity dominates, turning stored potential energy into rapid downward motion, causing the load to move unpredictably. Heavy loads don't give warnings. They react to imbalance instantly. Control the load, or the load controls the outcome. A massive suspended block hangs mid-air in a busy work zone. Then the chain is released, and the load moves downward instantly. Do not remove lifting connections until the load is fully supported by a stable surface and all movement is eliminated. An industrial robot cycles smoothly on the line. Then entry occurs into the work zone, and the arm swings into motion without pause. Keep personnel outside the robot's operating envelope and use lockout or safety interlocks before entering the work zone. Industrial robotic arms operate through programmed motion paths powered by servo motors, which drive joints to produce precise rotational and linear movement. Once a cycle begins, the system maintains continuous motion along its preset trajectory, applying consistent force and speed through each segment of the movement. The structure of the arm amplifies force through leverage, meaning even controlled motor input can result in significant output at the tool head. When an object enters that program path, the robot does not adjust unless a safety system interrupts it. Robots follow code, not surroundings. Control the energy before stepping in. In a steel factory packaging area, a crane moves a massive coil, then one step backward brings the work zone directly into the load path. Maintain full visual awareness and stay clear of the moving load path when operating or working near crane-lifted materials. Inside a galvanizing plant, a vat of molten zinc sits still until a sudden reaction sends material outward across the floor. Keep all moisture, contaminants, and unknown materials away from molten metal operations and maintain safe distance during handling and transfer. Molten zinc operates at temperatures above 400 degrees Celsius, where it exists in a highly fluid, heat-dense state. When water or moisture is introduced into this environment, it rapidly vaporizes into steam. This phase change creates a rapid expansion because water increases dramatically in volume when converting to steam, generating a sudden pressure release that pushes molten metal outward. Molten metal reacts instantly to contamination. Control the environment before approaching the heat. Inside a concrete shaft, a pressurized pipe suddenly surges, then releases outward without warning. Never stand or position equipment in the direct path of a pressurized pipe. Always treat it as a potential release zone. On top of a tanker truck, a hatch is opened. Seconds later, a sudden pressure release moves upward from inside the tank. Control internal pressure and eliminate ignition sources before opening or working on confined tanks. Verify venting, grounding, and gas conditions before exposure. High above ground on a narrow suspended platform, work continues near the wall. Then the entire plank suddenly loses support. Never trust an unsupported or unsecured work platform. Verify anchoring, load capacity, and structural integrity before stepping onto elevated surfaces. Suspended or cantilevered platforms rely entirely on load distribution and secure anchoring to remain stable. When the support points are insufficient, uneven, or not properly fixed, the structure experiences bending stress that exceeds its design limit. As workers shift position or add dynamic load, movement tools, the center of gravity can move beyond the support zone, creating a tipping moment that the platform cannot resist. Once that balance is lost, failure happens instantly, either through structural breakage or rotational collapse. If the platform isn't secured, neither are you. Stability must be verified before every step. On a sheet metal line, material is adjusted inside the machine, then the press suddenly cycles. Never enter the working zone of a press without full lockout. Unexpected activation can occur at any moment. On a construction site, a suspended crane component hangs mid-lift, then the lifting rope suddenly fails. Avoid standing near or beneath a suspended load. Rigging failure can happen without warning. Lifting systems rely on tensioned components like ropes, slings, and hooks to carry loads under constant stress. When that tension exceeds the material's capacity due to overload, wear, improper rigging angles, or hidden damage, the rope can fail instantly. The stored elastic energy in the tensioned line releases rapidly at the moment of failure. Once the rope breaks, the load loses all support, and gravity takes over immediately. The mass accelerates downward while also shifting unpredictably due to imbalance, creating secondary motion like swinging or tipping. If it's suspended, it can fall. Stay clear of the drop zone, always. Inside a factory line, contact occurs near a running roller machine, then the rotating shaft suddenly drives motion inward. Never place any part of your body, or even lean close, into moving rollers, exposed shafts, or unguarded machinery. Do not attempt to adjust, clear, or inspect material while the machine is running. Always isolate power and stop all motion before approaching. A long metal shaft is being hammered loose on the workshop floor, then pressure releases, and the entire system moves suddenly. Do not strike or loosen pressurized or force-loaded components without first isolating and releasing stored energy. Always secure the shaft, depressurize the system, and use controlled removal methods instead of impact force. Long shafts connected to machinery often hold residual energy from multiple sources: mechanical tension, rotational inertia, or trapped internal pressure. When impact force is applied, that energy can release unpredictably. Striking the shaft introduces sudden impulse forces that travel through the metal. If the shaft is bound or misaligned, friction and internal stress build up at connection points. Once that resistance is overcome, the stored energy converts into rapid motion. Stored energy doesn't warn before it moves. Control it first, or it will control the outcome. Inside a busy shipyard floor, a massive load is being worked on. Then, without warning, a forklift crosses into the active work zone. Keep forklifts and moving equipment strictly separated from active work zones. Use spotters, barriers, and communication signals to prevent unexpected entry into hazardous areas. In a tight workshop corner, loose fabric feeds into spinning rollers, then suddenly tightens, creating a strong inward pull toward the machine. Do not place your hands, body, or loose materials near active rollers or rotating feed systems. Always stop and isolate the machine before making adjustments, secure or control loose fabric, and maintain a safe working distance, because rotating equipment will continuously pull anything it grips without hesitation or warning. Rotating rollers generate constant friction and grip, creating a continuous in-feed force that does not release once contact is made. As the material wraps or tightens, the system multiplies pulling force through rotation speed, torque, and surface contact pressure, rapidly increasing tension. The rollers act like a conveyor of force, transferring mechanical energy through the material while reducing any chance of reversal due to continuous rotation. This turns loose fabric into a transmission path, allowing the machine to convert rotational motion into linear pulling force, accelerating the draw-in effect with increasing speed and resistance. Control the material, or the motion takes over. Distance is your only safety zone. At a cement factory, entry begins near a massive industrial drum. Then smoke suddenly starts building from inside the structure. Do not work on or above enclosed industrial drums, kilns, or rotating vessels while they are active, pressurized, or not fully isolated. Always verify full shutdown, internal conditions, and ventilation status before entry or positioning, because confined industrial systems can release heat, gases, and pressure without visible warning. At a factory line, an open tank operates under heat. Then a sudden surge releases liquid outward in seconds. Avoid standing over or directly beside open tanks, pressurized lines, or heated liquid systems during operation. Maintain safe positioning, use barriers or shields, and verify pressure release and temperature stability before approaching, because hot liquid systems can discharge violently when internal energy is suddenly released. Heated industrial liquids store large amounts of thermal energy, especially when contained under pressure or within partially enclosed systems. When pressure builds, through boiling, trapped gases, or restricted flow, the system reaches an unstable equilibrium. Any sudden disturbance, such as opening a path, shifting material, or pressure imbalance, can trigger rapid phase change or forceful discharge. As the liquid escapes, it expands and accelerates due to pressure differential, converting stored thermal and pressure energy into kinetic motion. If it's hot and contained, it's unstable. Position and distance decide everything. At a roadside workshop, a long metal pole rests across a pickup, then suddenly shifts, swinging into the space below. Never assume a long or heavy object is stable just because it looks still. Always secure loads with proper restraints, control both ends, and stay completely out of the swing path, because even a small shift can turn the entire length into a fast-moving hazard. A tractor climbs onto a trailer on a gravel driveway. Then the entire setup suddenly shifts, and the towing vehicle loses directional control in seconds. Do not load heavy equipment onto a trailer without securing the vehicle, stabilizing the trailer and ensuring proper weight distribution. Always engage parking brakes, use wheel chocks, and load on level ground, because shifting loads can instantly transfer force back into the towing vehicle. When a heavy machine like a tractor is driven onto a trailer, the system's center of gravity continuously shifts rearward and upward. As the tractor climbs the ramps, its weight transfers onto the trailer axles, reducing the normal force on the towing vehicle's rear tires. This loss of traction limits braking and steering control. If the load moves, everything moves. Control the weight, or lose control entirely. Don't forget to share what you learned today in the comments. Your insight could save a life. Take care.